And so I left the traditional school system in search of alternative learning experiences that kids would actually want to be part of. Learning experiences where we would help them learn the skills that are going to help them thrive in this ever-changing, chaotic future that we live in, right? 2/3 of the kids that are going through grade school right now will end up doing jobs that haven't been invented yet. So I was like, instead of teaching them what to think and how to do things and all this knowledge that may or may not be relevant in the future, we need to teach them how to think for themselves, how to, approach failure, how to take risks, how to work in teams, how to collaborate, how to communicate effectively, how to find what they're really, really good at and then double down on that. Not so much trying to remediate their weaknesses, which is a lot of what happens in school. And they need to graduate knowing what they're excited to do and what they're good at, right? In order to sort of pursue that and be able to pivot in different directions and ask questions. And so as I started to explore this whole alternative education world, it turns out that there are a lot of startups and a lot of homeschooling communities and alternative school communities that are doing things differently and where kids are excited to learn. And they're learning very, very differently than we normally see in school. And suddenly all these opportunities started to become obvious. And I was like, why aren't we doing, why aren't more kids following this path? And it's because many parents just don't know about this opportunities, or they haven't quite realized that the way that we've been teaching is very outdated and there's a much better way to do it. And so I ended up joining Synthesis, which is this educational company that originated at SpaceX when Elon Musk realized the same things that we've been talking about, that a lot of parents have realized. My kids are not learning how to think. They're very bored. They're not being able to apply a lot of the things that they learn because they forget about them. They're just memorizing things. We need to create our own school. So he hired Josh Don, who's one of our co-founders, to start a brand new school at SpaceX without following the traditional, parameters or, the standards and all these academic things that schools usually fall into. And so what ended up happening was that kids were learning through projects. So instead of learning, subjects in isolation, which is what happens in school, here they had this big problem that they were presented with, and it was usually a real life problem. And they had to then use and learn about different skills in order to solve that problem. So they were really putting into practice the things that they were learning. And what research shows is that knowledge decays really quickly. So unless you put into practice what you've been learning in the next 14 days, even if it's theoretically interesting to you, you will forget about it, which, if you look at a lot of the things that we teach in school, most of the time they don't have practical applications right away. We're teaching, again, just in case for this future that may or may not come. And so in this school that was called Ad Astra when it started, everything had practical applications and it was all hands-on and it was through projects. And so kids were really in charge. They did not have instructions, the teachers would barely intervene. They were more of facilitators and guides that would pose questions and would sort of cheer you to keep going when things got hard. And it was really challenging because something that we've realized that we get wrong in school is that we water things down. We give kids a bunch of instructions. We don't want for them to get confused. When in reality, kids want that complexity. They crave that complexity. And that's why they're so drawn to video games, right? They're not drawn to video games because they're easy. They're drawn to video games because they're challenging and because they have to figure things out and because they get to keep trying until they finally achieve what they're trying to achieve. And so we modeled a lot of the things that we learned from games to this school, and the kids loved it. They were so excited. They felt so empowered. They were at the driver's seat. And the most popular class there was this class called Synthesis, which was this challenges that kids had to compete and collaborate against each other. And they learned different mental models that they had to apply in order to solve the challenges. And it was very high paced and no instructions. They had to figure things out. They got to fail over and over again and pick themselves up and realize that this is part of the learning process. They would not get this grades that would, punish them for learning, which is what happens in school. And so the results were just outstanding. Now, the problem is that the school was only for 48 kids, right? Elon's 6 kids and then the SpaceX employees, the kids of them. But we were like, okay, how can we grab this Synthesis course and put it online so that kids all over the world have access to this? And so that was the origin of Synthesis. And this happened 3 years ago where we launched the company, and it started as a set of simulations that kids get to play from ages 8 through 14. And there's mixed ages, right? Because that was one of the parameters for this school and for Synthesis. This idea of grade levels that we have in schools doesn't make sense, right? Because we know, when in the real world do you only interact with people your age? Only in a school setting, right? And so if you actually look at mixed age schools, which I got the opportunity to work at one of them in New York City, it's really incredible what happens when you have younger kids learning from older kids, and then I'm trying to imitate them, and they would automatically take on challenges that otherwise they would not even have been exposed to, right? When they're in grade levels. Because when you put grade levels, you say you're going to learn up to here, right? Even if you can do more or you want to do more, no, you get to learn that next year. And so we are putting a speed limit to kids learning. And then the older kids, when they get to actually be with younger kids, they get this sense of like, oh, I'm the older kid, I'm the more mature, I want to teach them, the teacher's assistant. And so they get to actually teach. And we know from research that the best way to learn something is to teach it, right? And so you have this very beautiful natural process where teachers could step out of the room, and there was so much teaching and learning going on when you have mixed age groups. And so Ad Astra was mixed staged, and now Synthesis is mixed stage. And so we started with this, team simulations that would teach the soft skills that we talked about: communication, how to fail, how to, make difficult decisions under pressure, which is something that kids rarely have a chance to do nowadays, like be independent and make real decisions when they're younger, and all the things that we really think that they're going to need in order to thrive in this ever-changing world, regardless of what they want to do. And we've made it really, really fun. It feels like playing a video game. And now this year we launched our second product, which is the AI tutor, which tackles the hardcore academics, which started with math. And what's incredible about this is that it feels like you're really talking to a human. So it's not like the apps that you see out there. And the kids are able to learn so much faster all the different subjects with, just an hour of learning a day. So it opens up the rest of your afternoon to actually be kids, which is one of the biggest things that I've been fighting for. I feel like we've removed the childhood from kids, right? They're in school for so many hours a day, then they come back, they have after school adult-led activities, then they have homework and then dinner and they go to bed. When do they get a chance to just play or get bored by an activity and come up with creative ideas and just be kids, right? Like in the past, like our parents and our grandparents. And so hopefully this kind of alternative education experiences are solving for that problem. So that was a long answer to sort of share what my journey has been like and what we're working on now and why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing.
So cool. So clarify a few things for me. So is it like for homeschoolers, or is it like supplemental to kids who are in traditional schools, or both?
We have kids from all over the place. So we have kids that are homeschoolers, and this is sort of the big chunk of their education. We have kids that go to traditional school, and then they use this in the afternoon as part of to complement their current education. And then we have kids that are world schoolers that are constantly traveling, so they don't go to a particular place, but they also don't do homeschooling, and they do this. And then we even have adults trying it out, to be honest, because a lot of us have to relearn these skills, right? Or unlearn the skills that are holding us back and relearn in order to sort of be able to do different things nowadays in this world.
So cool.